guys, pardon the dirty dishes today, but I have gotten several questions on watering these. And after I made my video showing where these guys here are ready for a drink, you can see the shriveling here. I got some more questions in these guys, whereas these guys, most of them are pretty happy. So they don't really need a drink. So I'm not going to soak the whole pot this time. Usually I would just take my lovely little faucet here and soak the whole pot until it ran out. But since this half is happy and this half isn't, this is what I always do. I like to use a little bit of lukewarm water because it soaks in a little bit faster and doesn't pool on the top of the dirt as easily, which this is a really loose mixture, so that's not as likely to happen. But sometimes it pools and then it'll run around to the other side of the pot before it soaks in, and since I don't want that to happen, I like to get my water a little bit warm. And if you think about the temperature that rainwater usually is, you know, kind of body temperature, a little less, you know, 80 degrees, 70 degrees, you know, rain can be colder too, but the reason I'm warming it up is just to help it soak in a little bit easier. But it doesn't have to be super warm. But with our water, we have well water and it's really cold. Alrighty, finally warming up there. And then I'm gonna turn it on to the rain, and then I'm just gonna do this on this side here. And of course these guys are gonna get a bit of a drink, but I just try and concentrate it onto this side and let it soak. And they're not, these guys aren't overwatered. There's been a couple of questions. I've had some PMs on Facebook and then in the comments about them splitting. And that is a problem. I'm going to let this drain out, of course, so that none soaks up in here. And this is all still dry on this side. I mean, super, super dry, even though I really soaked this side. And that's because my mix is so loose. If you're having problems with these guys splitting, my recommendation is absolutely to get a looser potting mix, because it's just that they are being allowed to absorb too much water. And because they just keep sucking and sucking and sucking water, they often will split if there's too much. And the only way I have figured out how to prevent that is simply from having a looser mix so that it just can't hold as much, so that they just can't absorb as much. Because I found, especially with this variety here, they need a bit more water, more frequent watering, not huge amounts at once. And the only way, like I said, I found is just to add more pumice. That's my favorite by far. You can use perlite or whatever works for you. The perlite tends to float to the top and drive me insane. As you can see, every tiny bit that was in this potting soil has floated to the top, which is fine. But on smaller plants, it can be pretty aggravating. Yeah, so I would suggest a looser mix and then water when they're shriveled and put them in a nice, sunny, bright, warm location so that it just evaporates off and dries out really fast. I have heard of using bottom heat, you know, like the heating mats that they have for seed starting trays, especially in the winter for these guys to help evaporate off. However, I haven't had good success. I haven't tried it super long term, but most plants, from what I found, don't like bottom heat. It's just not natural. It's not normal for them. They're used to the heat coming from the sun, possibly, you know, the rocks and soil around them, but really never consistently, and certainly not all day long. However, if you're having a trouble with them splitting, and it's in the middle of winter and your mix just won't dry out, you could put them on a little bit of a heat mat for, you know, a few hours after you water, just to help things evaporate off. You could also put a little fan on them to just help things not stay too long and evaporate off. But in general, if your mix is gritty enough for your location, which can take some experimenting depending on how much humidity and sun and all of that, but if your mix is gritty enough, they shouldn't split. From my experience anyway, splitting is almost always from them sitting in water too long rather than having it back to back too much usually. And the sitting in water is just down to the potting mix usually. And what we think is pretty fast, you know, drying out in a day or two. For these guys, I and my lithops also, they're usually dry after I water them, or, you know, barely damp within a few hours. So, yeah, so then that allows me to give them a lot more of a drink and not be as paranoid about it. Anyways, this got longer than I imagined. I hope that helps somebody. Splitting with these guys really is annoying. I so feel for you guys. Yeah, I'm trying to think of any other advice, but really, the potting mix being grittier is all I got for you at this point, and it has done wonders for me. I water so much more now, but they dry out and they are just happy. With succulents, like I've said in other videos, and as I'm sure most of you know, especially, their roots grow only when it's dry, and so they love having dry periods, and they love having a drink and then having air in circulating around their roots. And especially with these guys in their native habitat, they just aren't used to heavy soils. All right, that's all I got for you today on these guys, and I will talk to you guys soon. I was hoping these guys, oh, there we go. You can see their windows really nicely because the sun is just coming through this window so beautifully. All right, you guys, I hope you have a fantastic day and happy growing.